Hey, what's going on YouTube? It's Donnie all day. So I get questions every now and then about knife lengths. Hey, what size do I need if I'm doing this, or what is this a good knife length for this, or blah, da, 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 da. So we get a whole bunch of those kind of questions, and to be honest, if your question is what knife size do I need, it depends what you need it for, really. There is no one universal knife size. I mean, if you're knife fighting, look, you only need one of those. But literally, it comes down to, and we're talking just fixed blades. So you're talking your EDC, talking what if you are trekking, what if you are camping, what if you are trekking to camp, and there's a big difference. Um, what if you're combat? What if you're worried about street fighting? There's all kinds of different scenarios that you might need a different knife for, where one knife size is not going to be that universal fit. So I'm going to start with something as simple as an EDC. Now, normally I would break out my D-Bad Little Big Man because I designed it to be perfect for an EDC size, but I think it's upstairs and I'm not chasing it down. So I have some great options. I have these two, both from ADV Tactical, and both are very, very good options for fixed blade EDCs, depending on what you need them for. Now you'll notice this handle is dinky. It's not a handle that is going to be like, oh, I can really hold on to that. But they do a good job by adding that, giving your pinky that little rest right there, making it a more full-size grip. Now, this is great if you're talking fixed blade EDC where you are opening packages and getting things like that. It's got to be around, what, 3 inches, somewhere in there? It is. It's a 3-inch, basically a 3-inch blade from cutting edge to tip. So with this, I know that I can rip things open, I can cut open. Now, if you're talking about like self-defense, yeah, I mean, slashing, absolutely, but not exactly what you'd want. This is going to be your fixed blade, EDC, like everyday just tool knife. Like I'm cutting rope or I'm cutting open boxes, and that's really what it's made for, is boxes. So if you are working in a warehouse or something like that, you really want something where you're looking at like a 3-inch blade, something that's just easy to get in, get out. You don't want something too long when you're talking about a box blade, because then you have to worry about uh, over punctures, and you can cut whatever's in that box. So you want to keep it a nice small blade when you're talking about that. If you're talking about EDCs, where you're using it for pretty much everything, then you can go a little bit bigger. This is the ADV Tactical K9, and this blade I think is 4.5, somewhere in there, and it is 4 inches. So this blade is perfect for all around good grip size, for all around cutting needs. You can open boxes with these. I mean, you can open anything with these, but it's going to be a big enough size where you can reach in if something's far down and you have to cut. 4 inches is going to give you a little bit of stretch without being so long that it's going to be uncomfortable on the belt, to where every time you sit down in the car, you got to, oh, I got to adjust it when I sit down. Or you got, if you live in a very liberal area where people, oh no, he's got a knife, and you don't want it dangling too far down, then you go with something like this. I would say if you're talking about an EDC knife, that you're carrying for cutting purposes, things like that, anywhere between 2.5 to 4 inches in the blade length is perfect for an EDC pocket knife, just for quick cuts, things like that. Without a doubt, you'll be fine on that blade size. I mean, fine with that blade size. Now, when you're talking about combat or fighting knives, and there's two different kinds of fighting knives. Obviously, you have a combat knife, like a combat utility knife, and you have a combat fighting knife, and you have just a fighting knife, there's all kinds of stuff, right? All kinds of stuff. But when you're talking about like a fighting knife, like a true combat fighter, something that, oh, I better rely, my knife is my life type thing. You want minimal a 4 inch blade, and the reason is because most vital organs are within 4 inches of the body. Now, unless you're a you're fighting an entire army of sumo, then you guys you're going to need something a little bit longer to get through. The D-Bad War Machine is a perfect example of a good EDC size fighting knife. So you can have a fighting knife like a classic Muso style Bowie. I mean, that's what it is, right? But where are you gonna? I mean, carrying it, unless you live in a place where it's okay to have a giant blade on you, um, it could be a distraction in the public eye, and it could give you some problems with the popos walking down the street. Unless you live in a very conservative area where they say it doesn't matter, this is okay, you can carry that. Then, if you're comfortable with that, by all means, like this is my D-Bad Big Jim. Okay, I can use it for hacking and cutting. Am I going to be doing like, oh, I got to do a little work on my car. I got some hoses. You don't want to be that far away because you'll lack control at the tip. But as far as just pure fighting knife, things like that, you really want to stay between 4 and 8 inches when it comes down to like combat fighting, things like that. If you're talking about fighting where it's knife on knife combat all through, then all of a sudden you can expand that. You're going to want a knife between 6 and 12 inches. So there's different kinds of fighting, there's different kinds of combat, there's different kinds of self-protection. There's self-protection in the woods, and you're going to want something a little bit longer in case there's that bear attack. You want some. I know with this thing, you know what I mean? If a bear comes at me and I just hold it up and I can try to get it through his chest, I'm gonna have a better chance. Remember, guy killed a bear, stopped a bear attack with a buck 110 folding knife. All you gotta do is get lucky. You're gonna have a better chance of getting lucky with a longer blade because on a big animal, those organs are gonna be a little farther in and harder to get. So the more damage, the better. The other good thing about a bigger knife is it's more intimidating. In the army, we call you have soft targets and hard targets. So if I'm walking in a combat area and I have my rifle down and I look like I'm just nervous and I don't look like I'm about to fight back, I'm the guy they want to approach because I'm less of a target. I'm a soft target. You walk through with confidence and you just look the part and they see something about you that they're thinking, I better not mess with that because there's something there that can get me back. You're a hard target. When you have something dangling down the belt that they can see, they might, okay, you know what I mean? Why risk robbing that guy for the $12 in his pocket where I could end up meeting the point of a knife where I can pick somebody else and who's not going to be a threat, who's not an evident and immediate danger, who's not going to provide resistance. So with that kind of knife, like my D-Bad War Machine here would be absolutely not just adequate but perfect for it. Now, if you're talking about camping is a huge array, right? You have all kinds of different needs for camp knives. If I was going to be on a campsite where I'm using it around like the inside the camp for processing and fire and things like that, I don't need much more than this. Don't. If I don't need to go process wood for fire, if all I needed was like feather sticking and making kindling, I don't need anything bigger than this guy right here, the Bradford 4.0, whatever it is, the Guardian. I could get away with this all day long. I would not choose a blade smaller than this for my camp knife. No way, no how. And this is, I believe, is 4.5 inches. And it is from, well, the blade itself, or the cutting edge is 4 1/4, all the way to the where the grind starts is 4 1/2, and that's a little bit like 4 3/4 all the way to the scales. This is good. Can I get away with a 4 inch knife? Absolutely, absolutely. 4 inches. So like your smallest camp knife for controlled cuts in the camp, not your outside the camp knife, your inside the camp knife. I would try and keep it between 4 and 6 inches, something like this, or the very formidable SE6. Perfect. This is perfect for in camp use. This isn't the knife I'm going to choose if I need to go take down a log to process it into smaller pieces. Once it's in smaller pieces, yeah, I could use this knife all day long. It would be great. But in camp knives, I would definitely keep between 4 and 6 inches. Um, that's where you're gonna get your money's worth in just control. So now, what if you are camping, hunting, right? You need to go get your own game. Well, if you're going to have a hunting knife, you want something a little bit more substantial. You want some kind of buoy to where you can get through big hide, rip down. My John Jay Tribute is just awesome. This thing is a great hunting knife size, even though it's a little over. Hunting knife size, you can start with a 6 inch blade. You'd be fine. Now, can you rip with a smaller blade? Absolutely. Most skinners are small blades, but if I'm off camp, I have to think about other things like what happens if I get stuck when I'm out there and I need a bigger blade, right? What happens if I say, okay, I'm going to go forage for things, or I'm going to go hunt for things to bring back to my camp, and then all of a sudden there's a mudslide and I fall down a hill, or a storm rolls in that I didn't expect, or a bear comes by to a point where, or a big cat, and kind of chases me out of my boundary, and now it gets dark and it's to a point where I'm going to have to settle wherever the hell I land and go back to my camp the next day. I'm going to want something that I know can process wood, process animals, and get me there all the way through. So for an outside the camp knife, I always try to stay over 6 inches, maybe 6 to 10 is all you really need, depending on terrain, and that's where it gets a little crazy. If you are in an open woodland, or if you're in, Arizona, Utah, Nevada, where you got some wide open space, by all means, this is all you're going to need. But if you get into something where the terrain gets a little hectic and it gets a little harder to walk through, then you're going to need something more. Now, as far as like just size options, this one right here is a great camp knife, right on the brink in between. And this is my D-Bad Camp Master and my D-Bad Preacher. This one is right in between that one, the John Jay, and this one, right? This is going to be a nice heavy knife, so I can really chop and process and get everything done with this one, where this one's going to be more suited for in the camp. This is going to be like a nice big in the camp knife, where I have tons of control. I can get everything done, but in a pinch, I can choke down and I can use it as a chopper, a really good chopper, and still process bigger limbs to get down to size for fire making. Where this guy is going to be a straight up just go out and hack stuff up. I mean, that's what this thing is. Big animal comes by, I have a nice big thick heavy knife, boom, I can help myself, right? But that doesn't help me if I'm trekking and I'm going through brush, and that's where things start to change. Now you don't want those 6 inch blades. If you don't have a machete on hand and you're going through things that are a little thick and hectic, you're going to want a blade that's a little longer and something that's kind of made for that kind of action. You're going to want something minimum 10 inches. Minimum 10 inches. And you can go all the way up to 24 inches on something like that if you're talking about bringing the blade stock down. The longer it is, the more you want the blade stock down, if you're talking about just going through brush. Now, if you want talking about combat, you can have that blade a little thicker at 24 inches. just fine. But a kukri, a machete, things like that are going to be great. My D-Bad 12,000, great for cutting through the stuff. So I know that if I have to go out and on a hunt and try to get something, once I get it, I know I can take care of it with this. I know I can two-hand it and I can rip. I can do a whole lot of really good stuff with this knife. Plus, it has the added benefit of going through brush, bushes, vines, things like that, where the other knives might not excel. So that's where I'd be with that. So it really comes down to there is no one answer of what size knife I should take. It really depends on what you're going to be using it for. So now the camping, I mentioned earlier, what kind of camping? If I was driving my car to a campsite, driving, boop, parking, opening up the trunk, unloading all my stuff, leaving the car right there. My car's right there at the campsite, and now my tent is here. I have my car. I go, look, I can turn on the car. I can use the electronics, everything. Then you don't really need things for trekking. And if you do need to break off camp, well, guess what? You got a whole trunk or a back seat where you can load as many. You can have so many options. You can bring an axe. If I'm hiking and camping, I'm not bringing an axe. I'm not bringing anything that I don't need because I want to be light. I want to be mobile. I want to be nimble. I want to be quick. I want to be just in case ready. I don't want to bring too much stuff. So I'm going to bring like a one option knife. You know what I mean? And that's where something like a John Jay or my preacher comes in, or the SE Hungles is perfect for it. A perfect one option knife. If you don't know the Hungles, it's spelt Junglas, Junglas, from Seesee. It is awesome. It is one of the most awesome one tool knives that you'll ever need in a camp situation. But if you don't have one of those, the ranges don't matter. So I mean, but that's what I'm saying. If you are parked, it really doesn't matter. But if you are grabbing a backpack, you're driving up to some little parking area or roadside stop where you are about to go into the wilderness and camp. Like if in New Hampshire we have I think it's called the Seven Presidents or whatever it is. All the mountains, Washington and this and that, right? So you have all these different mountains that are named after presidents, and you can hike and hit each mountain in a few days. You can hit them all. But what you're going to need to do, because you're out in the middle of the wilderness, every now and then you have to stop and set up camp, right? Set up camp on this mountain, set up camp on this mountain, set up camp. You're not driving your car up there. You're not doing it. You're not taking it through that trek. You can hike the Appalachian, and you can come down in a car and hit a lot of it, but a lot of it's just straight through the woods. So you're not bringing a car on a hike through the Appalachians. So this is something that you're going to need, that one tool option. If you're thinking, okay, I know that there's trails, Appalachian Trail, there's trails. You can hike it from freaking Maine to Florida, right? You can go all the way down. You can have trails there. So I know I don't need something crazy long for hacking through brush and all that, because my trail is made. I don't have to make a trail. But if you're going someplace where you are exploring the woods and you're going through places that aren't trailed, that aren't already tromped through, then you're really going to have to think about what you're going to bring with you. And that's where a two knife option would come in. You know what I mean? Where you might want to have something like this and something like this. The less is better, but sometimes there's situations where less isn't more. You know, I mean, you have to have the options. I can't do what I can do with this, and I can't do what I can do with this. So if I'm out in the woods on that kind of scenario, you could bet your sweet ass bottom, I am gonna be doubling up on something like this, or I would bring a pocket knife. But this is a fixed blade talk, so that's how I would do it. So that's where I'm going with it. God, I love this. But yeah. So if you're going out, or if you're buying a knife, make sure you're buying the knife for what you know you're going to use it for. An EDC fixed blade like that Guardian right there, I know I could put on my belt. I can carry it forever. forever. I would have no problem. My D-Bad little big man, I carry that forever. I would have no problems doing anything I need with if I'm not trekking, right? And even if I'm trekking, the best knife you have is whatever the one is on you, right? So I know that I can at least survive. Can I do what I can do with this? No. But it would be better than having nothing. The difference is knowing that I'm going to be carrying an EDC just out, then I can go with that small blade or shorter blade and be a-okay. So that's it for this one. I am Donnie all day. Until next video.